What's going on, ladies and gents? Dalibor here for T3G, and today we're going to be talking about the Sega Genesis Classic game console with 80 included games. As you can see, it's got every Sonic game that came out on Sega, including Sonic 3D and Sonic Spinball, as well as a range of other classic games, everything from Altered Beast to Comix Zone, Mortal Kombat, Vector Man, anything you could think of, this thing's got it. So without further ado, let's get right into it and check out the console. Right out of the box, you have the console itself, two wireless controllers, an AV cable, the power cable, and of course your booklet. Taking a look at the hardware, you can see the controllers keep the classic Sega Genesis feel. The console itself has an IR receiver on the front, as well as two ports for actual physically cabled controllers, so if you have a 4-player game on there, you can play with 4 players. Looking at the back of the system, you've got your AV output and your power input, pretty straightforward. And on the top, you've got two very satisfying buttons, along with the actual game slot. Oh, what? Did I forget to mention? Yeah, this thing takes classic Sega Genesis games. It of course won't work with all games based on hardware requirements of the original systems versus the newer stuff, but I do have a couple to try out, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Now on the controller, you've got the 6-button configuration, the menu and start button, as well as your D-pad, and on the back you've got your IR blaster, and you've got the actual player switch. Now when you do press buttons, the light will blink red on the top, indicating that you are sending commands. Now I did notice the buttons seem a little taller than the classic controller. I haven't held mine in a while, probably about a year and a half. I really don't have a solid point of reference, but from memory, these buttons just seem a little taller. Not really a complaint, just something that I noticed. And when you first start it up, you get the @Games, which is the company that made this. You get the @Games logo, and then you get greeted with the menu for the included games. They are on 8 separate pages. They are somewhat alphabetical, from the first page to the last page, and you get everything, like I said before, from Altered Beast to Comix Zone over into Mortal Kombat and everything like that. I decided to give Mortal Kombat a whirl since I haven't played Mortal Kombat 3 in a bit. Now the one thing I noticed while playing is that you do have to have the controller pointed at the console at all times. It is an IR wireless system, so if it's not line of sight, it's not going to work. The other thing I noticed is that when you haven't played classic style games in a really long time, your reaction time is not as good as it used to be. Also, I did decide to go on master level, so that might have had something to do with it, because I feel like I'm way better at the newer Mortal Kombats than I am at the classics, but that's just me, it's just my opinion. Now the buttons were very responsive, very satisfying. The D-pad feels like a classic D-pad. It's a little cheaper, but again, you know, this is not meant to be a high-end device. It was $50 at the store. I would say this is probably my top pick for a present for anybody that kind of lived through the 90s, likes video games, or used to play video games back in the day. This comes with a ton of different options built in, and as we're about to see, you can still play your games if you've got them. Now initially I thought that pressing the menu button would actually give you an option to switch to a game, but it actually just takes you back to the first page of the main menu. So if you're in game, make sure not to press that button. Now I'm a huge Star Trek fan, so that's one of the games that actually is out, and I've purchased it since I packed everything up, but you guys will never know the struggle. Now to switch to a cartridge game, you've got 2 options. You can put the cartridge in while it's running and hit the menu button. That's actually going to restart the system, not just take you back to the main menu as I said earlier, and then your cartridge, if it is compatible, will just play, and then you'll be able to go in and seek out new life and new civilizations in this case. Now you don't have to turn it on and hit the menu button. You can of course put the game in before powering on the system, and it will default to the cartridge, basically just as if it were a classic Sega Genesis. It'll only go to the menu if there is no cartridge in the system. Now overall, I would say this is an excellent, outstanding, tremendous even gift for anyone who likes video games. I think this will be a fantastic, I mean, if you're also for yourself, if you're a big fan of games like moi, you should definitely get this. I think this is fantastic. Plus Plus, it's a newer system, it's newer hardware, so if you do have, let's say, a working Genesis, it's less stress put on your old hardware. You know, you could use this to play probably the majority of your games. I mean, I can't speak for that definitely, but if I were a betting man, I would say you probably can play the majority of the classic Sega Genesis library on this new system. And if something isn't working, you will of course always have your classic system to go back to. I just think this is a really great solution for gamers, people who have a classic collection that want to still have their working old systems, as well as want to be able to play their classic games without really having to deal with older hardware and maybe go wireless in this case. Now, I bought it pre-Black Friday, pre all the sales, so I paid what I believed was full price, which was $50 at the time, but I've actually seen it for $60 at some places, so if you can find it at 50 or below, I would 100% recommend picking this up, especially if you've got a collection of old Sega games. If you want to kind of get into Sega games, this has 80 games included, so you'll definitely have a great sample size, and that's really all I've got to say about this. Go get one. If you can't find one, order one online. That's it for today. Sorry for the delay on this. The audio is still messed up. This is as good as it's going to get. I actually think this is pretty solid over what was recorded. This is the 4th attempt for me to record this, so I really appreciate you guys being patient. Appreciate you guys for watching. Make sure to come back next week for another tech video. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to check out 1 Minute Wednesday tomorrow, which is technically today because it's after midnight. And we'll see you in the next one.